A man just won $1.2 million at my casino, and the first thing he did was mouth, "They're going to kill my grandson," directly into my camera. I'm a casino surveillance operator. What happened next is why jackpot winners are never allowed to leave alone anymore. It was 2:47 a.m. on a Friday night in October when I noticed something wrong with the man at machine 187. The graveyard shift had just started 3 hours earlier, and I was settling into my usual rhythm in front of the wall of monitors that showed every angle of the area resort's gaming floor. 12 years I'd been doing this job, watching thousands of people gamble away their money, their time, their lives sometimes. You develop instincts after that long. You learn to read body language, to spot the tells that separate normal gambling behavior from something darker. Robert Hayes was a regular, 68 years old, retired postal worker from Tucson, always wore the same faded Arizona Diamondbacks cap. I'd watched him visit our casino maybe twice a month for the past 4 years, always playing machine 187, a high-limit slot positioned near the back wall where the noise from the main floor didn't carry as much. He was a creature of habit, arrived around 7 p.m., played for exactly 2 hours, never spent more than $300, tipped the cocktail waitress $5 when she brought him his 1 Coors Light, then left by 9:30 to head back to whatever hotel he was staying at. Predictable, safe, the kind of regular player that casinos love because he never caused problems and consistently lost small amounts over time. But tonight was different. Robert Hayes had been sitting at that machine for 6 straight hours, and I'd watched him feed over $11,000 into it. His normal pattern was completely shattered. The way he was hunched over the screen, the way his hands shook every time he hit the spin button, the way he kept checking his phone with this look of absolute terror on his face. Something was very, very wrong. I'd been watching him closely for the past 90 minutes, documenting his behavior, waiting to see if he'd self-correct, or if I needed to alert my supervisor. "Vincent, you tracking the guy at 187? Dale Cunningham's voice crackled through my headset. Dale had been running casino surveillance for 23 years, had started back when everything was still on VHS tapes, and you had to physically be in multiple rooms to see different sections of the casino. He'd seen every scam, every cheat, every desperate person making terrible choices. When Dale had a feeling about someone, there was usually a damn good reason for it. His instincts were legendary among the security team. Yeah, I've had eyes on him for the past hour and a half. I adjusted the zoom on camera 14 to get a tighter shot of Robert's face. He's way over his normal spending pattern. Dropped at least 11 grand already, maybe more. Behavioral profile is completely off from his established baseline. In surveillance, we tracked patterns obsessively. Every regular player had a file with their typical gambling habits, spending limits, time spent at machines, even their drink orders. When someone deviated significantly from their pattern, it triggered alerts in our system. Robert Hayes' deviation tonight was massive. Keep watching him closely. His body language is all wrong. I've been doing this long enough to know when someone's gambling because they want to, versus when they're gambling because they have to. This guy looks like he's got a gun to his head. Dale's voice had that edge to it that meant he was taking this seriously. Get me a timeline of his behavior tonight. When he arrived, how much he's spent, any interactions with other patrons, anything unusual. I pulled up the footage from when Robert had first entered the casino at 6:43 p.m. That was already unusual because his normal arrival time was closer to 7:15. He'd walked in alone, no luggage visible, hadn't checked in at the hotel desk, hadn't stopped at any other machines, just made a straight line for machine 187 like he was on a mission. His face, even back then, had looked strained, worried, not the relaxed expression of someone coming to enjoy an evening of entertainment gambling. Over the next 6 hours, I documented everything. The increasing bet sizes, the way he never took bathroom breaks, even though he should have needed to after 6 hours, the constant phone checking, the visible distress that kept getting worse as the night went on. Dale, I've got a complete behavioral timeline ready. This started wrong from the moment he walked in. He's showing every sign of external pressure. Compulsive phone checking, distress signals, way over normal spending limits, no breaks, increasing desperation in his body language. If I had to guess, I'd say someone's forcing him to be here. The question is why and who. I was already scanning other cameras, looking for anyone who might be watching Robert, anyone showing unusual interest in his machine. That's what I'm afraid of. Keep all angles on him recorded with backup. If something's going down, I want every second documented, and start scanning the area around his position. Look for anyone who's been maintaining visual contact with him for extended periods. Dale was thinking the same thing I was. This had all the hallmarks of a setup, but we couldn't figure out the angle yet. That's when everything changed. At exactly 2:51 a.m., machine 187 erupted in a cacophony of lights and sounds that cut through the ambient casino noise like a fire alarm. Bells, whistles, digital fanfare, the works. Jackpot symbols had aligned perfectly across all 5 reels in a combination that paid out the progressive jackpot. The digital display started climbing rapidly. 50,000, 100,000, 250,000, 500,000. It finally stopped at exactly $1,147,000. Robert Hayes had just won the second largest jackpot that machine had paid out in its entire operational history. The entire section of the casino floor went quiet for a brief moment as nearby players turned to look at the commotion. Normally, when someone hits a jackpot that size, there's immediate celebration. Screaming, jumping, crying, calling family members, hugging strangers, the whole emotional outburst that comes with suddenly winning more money than most people make in a decade. But Robert Hayes did none of those things. He just stared at the screen for exactly 3 seconds with an expression that I can only describe as absolute dread, like the machine had just shown him his own death certificate instead of a 7-figure payout. Then he slowly turned his head upward and looked directly into camera 14, the one I was operating. His mouth moved carefully, forming words that were crystal clear even without audio. "They're going to kill my grandson." 5 words that made my blood turn to ice and immediately explained everything about his behavior tonight. This wasn't gambling. This was extortion. "Dale, we have a major problem." I radioed immediately, my voice urgent. Machine 187 just paid out $247,000, and the winner is signaling active distress. He just mouthed that someone is going to kill his grandson. This is not a normal jackpot situation. I repeat, this is not normal. Copy that. Sending Leo to that location immediately. Get Metro PD on standby, but keep them off the floor for now. I want to know what we're dealing with before we escalate. Dale's voice had shifted completely into crisis management mode. "Vincent, I need eyes on everyone within a 50-foot radius of that machine. Someone's watching Hayes, and I want to know who they are." Leo Reeves was our head of floor security and the best person we could have for a situation like this. 6'5", former Army Ranger, had a master's degree in criminal psychology from UNLV. He could read a situation faster than anyone I'd ever worked with and had the physical presence to handle anything that might go sideways. Through my headset, I heard Leo's voice as he started moving across the casino floor toward machine 187, on my way to the jackpot winner. ETA 30 seconds. "Marcus, what do you see around him?" Leo's voice was calm and professional, despite knowing this was a potential crisis situation. That calmness was exactly why he was so good at his job. Even in high-stress scenarios, he never lost his composure. I was already scanning through multiple camera angles, pulling up feeds from every camera that had a view of the area around machine 187. What I saw made my pulse quicken. "Give me a second. I'm seeing some concerning patterns here." I switched between cameras rapidly, zooming in on different individuals, checking their positions and behaviors. "Okay, I've got multiple potential suspects. Woman in a red cocktail dress at a penny slot machine 30 feet from Hayes' position. She's been sitting there for over 4 hours and hasn't spun the reels once in the last 90 minutes. Just sitting, watching." I continued my scan. Man at the bar near the high-limit area, nursing what appears to be the same beer for the past 2 hours. He has direct line of sight to machine 187, and I've observed him checking that direction every few minutes. And Leo, this is where it gets more concerning. 2 more individuals at a blackjack table approximately 40 feet behind Hayes' position. They've been there for 3 hours, but their betting pattern is all wrong. They're placing minimum $5 bets and losing deliberately. They're not there to gamble, they're there to maintain position with eyes on our jackpot winner. Copy all of that. I'm approaching Hayes now. Keep tracking those 4 individuals and let me know immediately if any of them move toward my position. Leo's voice was tight with controlled tension now. He understood what we were looking at. This wasn't random. This was a coordinated surveillance operation that had been in place for hours, waiting for Robert Hayes to hit that jackpot. Through the directional microphones we had positioned throughout the high-limit area, I could hear Leo's voice clearly as he reached Robert's machine. The audio system was sophisticated enough to pick up normal conversation from 30 feet away. "Mr. Hayes, congratulations on your incredible win. I'm Leo from Casino Security, and I'm here to assist you with the payout process and ensure everything goes smoothly for you." His tone was warm and professional, giving no indication that we knew something was wrong. But Robert wasn't looking at Leo. His eyes were scanning the casino floor frantically, searching for something or someone. His right hand was gripping his cell phone so tightly that his knuckles had gone completely white. The phone screen was lit up, and I could see he had a text message displayed, though I couldn't read the content from my camera angle. His whole body was trembling visibly now that the adrenaline of winning had crashed into the reality of whatever situation he was trapped in. "They said 8 a.m., Robert whispered, his voice barely picked up by our sensitive microphones. "They said if I don't do exactly what they tell me by 8 a.m., my grandson Lucas doesn't make it to school tomorrow. They showed me pictures of him sleeping in his bed last night. They know which window is his bedroom. They know his schedule. They know everything." His voice was cracking with terror and exhaustion. "Vincent, I need a full tactical scan of everyone within 50 feet of Hayes' position right now." Dale's voice was urgent in my headset. "Look for anyone who's been in that area for more than an hour. Anyone who's not actively gambling. Anyone with eyes on our winner. Any communication between individuals. I want a complete picture of what we're dealing with." I was already pulling up the footage and running it back. My fingers flew across the keyboard as I queued up multiple camera angles and started tracking movements. "Dale, I've got those 4 individuals I mentioned, but let me run back the footage to see when they arrived and if there are any others." I started the playback at accelerated speed, watching the past 4 hours compress into minutes on my screen. The woman in red had arrived at 10:47 p.m., shortly after Robert had started playing. She'd made a straight line for that penny slot machine and had barely moved since. The man at the bar had shown up at 11:15 p.m., ordered a single beer, and had been nursing it ever since while maintaining visual contact with machine 187. The two men at the blackjack table had arrived separately, but within 10 minutes of each other around 11:30 p.m. What was interesting was that they'd deliberately chosen seats that gave them both clear sightlines to Robert's position. They'd been placing minimal bets, losing slowly, just maintaining their position at the table. This was professional surveillance. These people knew what they were doing. Dale, I've got all 4 suspects on camera arriving within the first hour of Hayes starting his session. They're maintaining coordinated positions with overlapping fields of view on the target. This is definitely a team operation, and I'm running facial recognition on all 4 right now. Give me 2 minutes for the system to process. I initiated the facial recognition software that would compare the suspects' faces against multiple databases, including known criminals, banned casino patrons, and law enforcement databases. Good work. Leo, get Hayes moving toward the surveillance room immediately. Use the standard jackpot payout procedure as cover. I don't care what it takes, but I want him in a secure location before these suspects can make their move. Dale was coordinating multiple elements now, and I could hear him on another channel alerting additional security personnel to standby positions. Through my monitors, I watched Leo place a gentle hand on Robert's shoulder, his body language non-threatening but authoritative. Sir, I need you to come with me right now. For jackpots over $500,000, we process the payout in a private VIP room where we can handle the paperwork, verify your information, and arrange secure payment. It's standard procedure, and it'll be much more comfortable than standing here on the casino floor. Leo was already subtly positioning himself to guide Robert toward the elevator bank that would take them to our surveillance level, but the woman in red was already moving. She stood up from her penny slot machine with purpose and started walking directly toward Robert and Leo. Her right hand went into her small designer purse, and I didn't like the way she was moving. There was intention in every step, a tactical approach that suggested training or at least experience in coordinated operations. The casual casino guest wandering around looking for a machine, this was not. Leo, woman in red approaching from your 10 o'clock position, approximately 40 feet and closing. Her hand is in her purse, and I cannot see what she's holding. Treat this as a potential threat situation. I was zooming in with multiple cameras now, trying to get a clear view of what might be in that purse, but the angle wasn't good enough. At the same time, the two men from the blackjack table were standing up, abandoning their chips on the table without cashing out. Nobody leaves chips on a blackjack table unless they're planning to come right back, which meant they were expecting this to be brief. They started moving toward the elevator bank, and I realized they were going to cut off Leo's planned escape route. The man at the bar set down his beer and began walking parallel to the woman in red, maintaining distance but clearly coordinating movement with her. Leo, you've got all 4 suspects converging on your position simultaneously. 2 males moving to cut off elevator access, woman in red plus 1 male approaching from different angles. This is a coordinated intercept pattern. They're boxing you in. I was frantically switching between camera views, trying to track all 4 individuals while maintaining focus on Robert and Leo. Copy that. Mr. Hayes, we're going to take a different route. Stay close to me and follow my lead exactly. Leo's voice remained calm, but had taken on that command tone that came from years of military training. He smoothly changed direction, heading toward the high roller room instead of the elevators. That area had controlled access, more security, and cameras covering every angle. It was much more defensible if this situation went bad. But the woman in red adjusted her trajectory immediately, proving she was watching their movement closely and adapting in real time. She called out loudly, her voice carrying across the casino floor and cutting through the ambient noise of machines and conversation. "Robert! Oh my God! Robert! Thank God I finally found you!" Her voice was pitched perfectly to sound like genuine relief and concern, the kind of emotional outburst that would make sense to any casino guest who happened to be watching. The performance was flawless. She picked up her pace, moving faster toward them, her expression showing what looked like authentic worry and relief. "Honey, your phone has been off for hours. Jessica has been trying to reach you about Lucas. We've all been so worried about you." The mention of Robert's grandson's name by someone he claimed not to know was a power move, designed to prove they had information and access, to reinforce the threat they'd already made. To anyone else in the casino, this looked like a worried family member finding a relative who'd been gambling too long and not responding to calls. It was perfect cover, the kind of social engineering that made intercepting a jackpot winner look completely innocent to bystanders. But I could see Robert's face on my zoom camera. The terror intensified the moment she said Lucas's name. His whole body went rigid, and he looked like he might collapse. Leo stepped smoothly between them, his large frame creating a physical barrier. His voice was polite, but carried unmistakable authority. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to step back. Mr. Hayes is currently with casino security on official business regarding his jackpot payout. We'll be happy to help you locate him once we've completed our required procedures." His positioning was tactical, keeping Robert behind him while maintaining a stance that would allow him to react quickly if she made any threatening moves. The woman stopped about 8 feet away, and her expression shifted to confusion and then indignation in a performance that would have been convincing if we hadn't been watching her conduct surveillance for the past 4 hours. "I'm sorry, officer, but there's been some kind of misunderstanding. I'm his daughter-in-law, Jessica Hayes. Robert is my father-in-law. There's been a family emergency involving our son Lucas, and we need to get Robert home to Arizona immediately. His daughter Michelle has been trying to call him for hours." She pulled out her own phone as if to show evidence of the supposed emergency. Robert's voice came out shaky, but clear enough for our microphones to pick up. "I don't know this woman. I've never seen her before in my entire life. My daughter-in-law's name is Michelle, not Jessica, and she would never send a stranger to find me in a casino. These people have been threatening my grandson. They sent me pictures of Lucas sleeping in his bed. They know where he lives. They told me exactly which machine to play and how much to bet." His voice was getting stronger as he realized he had protection now, that he wasn't alone anymore. Now we had a major problem. In full view of other casino patrons, we had someone falsely claiming a family relationship with clear intent to intercept a jackpot winner who was claiming extortion and threats against a child. The legal and security implications were escalating rapidly. Other guests were starting to notice the confrontation, some stopping their gambling to watch what was happening, pulling out phones to record. Dale's voice came through my headset, sharp and urgent. "Vincent, I need facial recognition results right now. Who are these people? Just came back." I was staring at my screen in disbelief at what the system had found. Woman is Natalie Voss, 34, 3 prior arrests for fraud in California, 2 convictions. She's suspected member of an organized theft ring that operates across Nevada, California, and Arizona. The 2 males from Blackjack are in the system too. Adrian Colton and Derek Marsh, both with records for theft, fraud, and 1 assault charge for Colton. They're all connected, Dale. This is an organized crew. Get Metro PD here immediately. Full response, not just standby. And I want every available security officer converging on Leo's position right now. Dale was already making calls on another line. Through my cameras, I watched as 4 more security officers appeared from different directions, moving casually but purposefully toward Leo and Robert. To most casino guests, it probably looked like they were congratulating the jackpot winner, but their formation was purely tactical, creating a protective barrier with overlapping fields of coverage. Natalie Voss's confident expression flickered for just a moment as she realized she was suddenly surrounded by casino security. She recovered quickly, but I'd caught that split second of calculation, the realization that her tactical advantage had just disappeared. The 2 men who'd been moving to cut off the elevator stopped their advance, now unsure whether to proceed or retreat. The guy from the bar had frozen about 20 feet away, recognizing that the situation had shifted dramatically. "Look, I think there's been a terrible misunderstanding here." Natalie's voice had taken on a reasonable, conciliatory tone. "Robert's been gambling for a very long time, and I think the stress and exhaustion might be making him confused. His family is genuinely worried about him. We just want to make sure he gets home safely with his winnings." She was still playing the concerned family member angle, but with less conviction now. "Ma'am, we have you on surveillance camera conducting over 4 hours of sustained observation of Mr. Hayes from a position where you had clear line of sight to his gambling activity." Dale's voice came through a speaker that only our security team and the suspects could hear clearly. "We have documented your arrival, your positioning, and your coordinated movements with 3 other individuals who are also in our system with criminal records. Robert Hayes has stated clearly that he does not know you and that you are part of a group that has threatened his grandson's life. Metro Police are on their way, and you are being detained." The transformation in Natalie's demeanor was instant and complete. The fake concern dropped away entirely, replaced by cold calculation. Her eyes swept across the security officers, assessing options, looking for weaknesses in their formation. "You can't prove anything. We're just casino guests who happen to be concerned about an elderly man who's clearly disoriented. Where's your actual evidence of wrongdoing?" She was buying time, waiting for something. "Vincent, where are the other 2 suspects?" Dale's voice was tight. "I want eyes on all of them right now." I was already scanning. The 2 guys from Blackjack are holding position about 30 feet from Leo's group. They're communicating through phones, texting rapidly. "Wait." I zoomed in on one of their screens. "Dale, they're texting someone not in the casino. There's another member of this crew we haven't identified yet. The one at the bar is moving slowly toward the exit. He's trying to leave before police arrive. Cut him off. Don't let anyone leave that floor," Dale ordered. Within seconds, 2 security officers positioned themselves between the bar guy and the nearest exit. His face showed frustration as he realized escape wasn't going to happen. The whole operation was falling apart for them, and they knew it. "Ms. Voss, let me show you the evidence you claim doesn't exist." I had already queued up the footage on our presentation system. On several monitors visible to the security team and suspects, I started playing back the evening in high speed. Natalie and her 3 team members arriving separately over the course of an hour, taking positions with overlapping views of Machine 187, the subtle hand signals between them throughout the night, the synchronized checking of phones at regular intervals, clearly coordinating through text messages. their utter lack of actual gambling despite maintaining position in a casino for hours, and most damningly, their immediate coordinated movement the instant Robert hit the jackpot. Then I pulled up what Robert had given us permission to access moments earlier. His phone, showing a thread of text messages from an unknown number starting at 11 p.m. the previous night. The first message was a photo of his grandson Lucas sleeping in his bed, clearly taken from outside the first-floor window of his bedroom. The image showed Lucas's nightlight, his bookshelf, his toys, all the intimate details of a child's bedroom photographed by a stranger. The second message was explicit. We know where Lucas lives. We know his school. We know his schedule. You will go to the Aria Resort tomorrow night. You will play machine 187 in the high-limit area. You will bet maximum every spin until you hit a significant jackpot. When you win, we take 70%. You get 30% for your cooperation. If you refuse, if you contact police, if you tell anyone, Lucas has an accident. The following messages detailed exactly how much money Robert needed to bring, what time he needed to arrive, how long he needed to play, even which cocktail waitress he should order from to maintain normal behavior. They'd researched him thoroughly, knew his patterns, knew what would and wouldn't seem suspicious. And the final message, sent just 30 minutes ago, you have until 8 a.m. to complete the transaction. After 8 a.m., the deal expires and Lucas pays the price. We're watching you right now. Don't do anything stupid. The room had gone completely silent as everyone processed what they were seeing. Even hardened security officers looked disturbed by the level of premeditation and the direct threats against a child. Natalie Voss's face had gone carefully blank, showing no reaction, but I could see her mind working through options. That's when Metro Police arrived. 6 officers led by Detective Raymond Foster from the Organized Crime Unit. Detective Foster had salt and pepper hair, sharp eyes that missed nothing, and a reputation for being absolutely relentless when it came to organized criminal operations. I'd worked with him on 3 previous cases over the years, and he was exactly who we needed for this situation. Ms. Voss, gentlemen, I'm Detective Foster with Metro Police Organized Crime Unit. You're all under arrest for extortion, stalking, conspiracy to commit theft, making terroristic threats against a minor, and criminal conspiracy. He nodded to the uniformed officers, who began the process of handcuffing all 4 suspects. We've been tracking your crew for 11 months now. Mr. Hayes isn't your first victim, but thanks to him being brave enough to signal for help, he's going to be your last. As they were being cuffed, Adrian Colton, one of the guys from the blackjack table, finally broke his silence. You people have no idea who you're messing with. This operation goes way higher than just us 4. We're ground level. There are people involved in this who will make your lives very difficult. His threat was empty bravado, but the content was concerning. This wasn't just a small crew. It was part of something larger. Then I strongly suggest you start cooperating with this investigation, Detective Foster replied calmly. Because the ground-level team is looking at 15 to 20 years in federal prison. Extortion, terroristic threats against minors, organized racketeering. These are federal charges. If you want any hope of a reduced sentence, you'll tell us everything about the people above you. Otherwise, you take the full weight of this operation on your shoulders while the people running it walk free. It's your choice. Detective Foster turned to Robert, his expression softening. Mr. Hayes, we need to talk immediately about your grandson's safety. I'm assuming Lucas is still in Arizona? Yes. He's with my daughter Michelle in Tucson. Robert's voice was shaking with relief and residual fear. They sent that photo sometime between midnight and 1 a.m. Michelle doesn't even know what's been happening. I didn't tell her because they said if I told anyone, they'd hurt Lucas. I've been terrified all night that I was going to get him killed. I'm calling Tucson PD right now to send officers to your daughter's home. They'll provide protection for Lucas until we're certain this threat is neutralized. Foster was already on his phone, coordinating with Arizona law enforcement. Within minutes, Robert received a call from his daughter, confused about why police had just arrived at her house, but confirming that Lucas was safe, still asleep in his bed, unaware of the danger that had been circling around him. The investigation that followed over the next several weeks revealed something far more extensive and disturbing than any of us had initially realized. Natalie Voss and her immediate crew weren't working alone or even as an independent unit. They were part of a sophisticated criminal network that had been operating across 7 western states for nearly 3 years, running what they internally called leveraged jackpot operations. The system they'd developed was brutally effective and psychologically devastating. First, they would identify potential targets through a combination of casino players' club data obtained through corrupt employees, social media analysis, and old-fashioned surveillance. They specifically looked for elderly casino regulars who visited consistently, gambled alone, had predictable patterns, and most crucially, had grandchildren. The presence of grandchildren was essential because that's where the leverage came from. Once a target was identified, they would conduct extensive research. They'd follow targets home from casinos to get addresses. They'd scour social media accounts of family members, finding photos and information about grandchildren, learning names, ages, schools, activities. They'd conduct physical surveillance of homes and schools, documenting security vulnerabilities, learning routines and schedules. They'd build detailed profiles that would make a professional intelligence agency jealous. Then came the contact phase. They'd send threatening messages that demonstrated their knowledge and access, photos taken through windows, details about daily routines, information that made it absolutely clear these weren't idle threats from some random person online. They had the capability to act, and the victims knew it. The psychological impact was devastating. Elderly grandparents who'd lived peaceful lives suddenly faced with intimate threats against the children they loved most in the world. The instructions were always similar with variations. Go to a specific casino they'd scouted and knew well. Play a specific machine or game that had recently gone long without a major payout, meaning it was statistically due for a hit. Bet maximum or close to maximum on every play. Keep playing until a significant jackpot was hit. No time limit, just keep playing until luck arrived. If the victim ran out of money before hitting the jackpot, they were forced to get cash advances, take out loans, drain savings, whatever it took to keep playing. When the inevitable jackpot finally hit, usually after the victim had already lost substantial amounts of their own money, the criminal team would be in position. They'd either intercept the winner directly, claiming to be family or friends, or they'd contact them immediately with instructions for payment. The victim was required to pay 60 to 70% of their winnings to the extortion team. The remaining 30 to 40% was just enough that the victim usually broke even or lost money overall when accounting for what they'd spent trying to hit the jackpot in the first place. The beautiful cruelty of the scheme was in the victim's psychology by that point. They'd been threatened, terrified, forced to gamble for hours or days, and were often so psychologically broken that they just complied. The criminals would frame the payment as settling a gambling debt, which made it look legitimate if anyone asked questions. Banks didn't flag large transactions between casino winner and another person as suspicious. The transactions appeared legal, and the victims were too scared to report what had really happened because the threats against their grandchildren still loomed. Detective Foster's investigation team worked around the clock, and what they uncovered was staggering. Using the arrested crew members as starting points and following digital trails, financial records, surveillance footage from multiple casinos, and phone records, they identified 29 other victims across Nevada, California, Arizona, and New Mexico over the preceding 18 months. Each victim told essentially the same story with small variations: threatening messages, photos of grandchildren, detailed knowledge of family routines, forced gambling, jackpot hits, followed by extortion payments. Mary Sullivan, 71, grandmother of 3 from Sacramento. She'd been forced to gamble for 11 straight hours at MGM Grand, spent $23,000 of her retirement savings, finally hit an $89,000 jackpot at 4 a.m., and paid $62,000 to the extortion team under threat of harm to her 6-year-old grandson. She'd never reported it, had told her family she'd won $27,000 and had a lucky night, and had been living with anxiety attacks and nightmares ever since. Thomas Wang, 65, grandfather of 2 from San Diego. He'd spent $31,000 over 2 separate nights trying to hit a jackpot at Caesar's Palace. He never won big enough to satisfy his tormentors, ended up completely financially ruined, had to sell his car to pay off the cash advances he'd taken, and had been receiving threatening messages for months afterward. He'd attempted suicide 3 weeks before we broke the case, survived, and was in therapy trying to recover from the trauma. Patricia Gonzalez, 69, from Phoenix. She'd hit a $156,000 jackpot at the Venetian after receiving photos of her 12-year-old granddaughter leaving school, walking home, entering her house, all taken over a week of surveillance. Patricia had paid $109,000 to the criminal team and had been too terrified to tell anyone. She'd developed severe anxiety, stopped visiting her granddaughter because she felt she'd brought danger into their lives, and had been essentially living as a prisoner of her own fear. Each victim showed the same psychological pattern: shame at being victimized, fear that reporting would trigger retaliation against family, isolation because they couldn't tell anyone what had happened, and lasting trauma from being forced into such a powerless situation. Many had developed anxiety disorders, depression, PTSD symptoms. Several had contemplated or attempted suicide. The damage went far beyond the money stolen. The financial analysis revealed the network had successfully extorted approximately $6.8 million from victims over 3 years of operation. The money was laundered through a complex series of shell companies, cryptocurrency transactions, and international transfers that took forensic accountants months to trace. The operation had at least 34 members across 6 states, with clear hierarchy and specialized roles. Research teams identified targets. Surveillance teams documented families and created leverage. Message teams sent threats and maintained psychological pressure. Ground teams positioned themselves in casinos and intercepted jackpot winners. Money teams handled the financial aspects and laundering. What made Robert Hayes different from the other victims became the question everyone wanted answered. Why had he signaled for help when 29 others had simply paid and stayed silent? Detective Foster interviewed him extensively, and the answer was both simple and profound. According to Robert's statement, about 2 weeks before the night at the Aria, his 8-year-old grandson Lucas had asked him during a visit why Grandpa looked so sad and scared all the time. Robert realized that Lucas, with the perceptive innocence of children, had noticed his grandfather's terror and distress. In that moment, Robert understood what message he would be sending to Lucas if he simply surrendered to the extortion. He'd be teaching his grandson that when bad people threaten you, you give them what they want. That courage means nothing. That standing up to bullies is impossible. Robert decided he'd rather die than teach Lucas that lesson. He'd rather risk his own life, risk potential harm to himself, than model cowardice for his grandson. So, when he finally hit that jackpot after hours of forced gambling and saw the criminal team moving to intercept him, he looked up at the surveillance camera and asked for help. He chose courage in a moment of absolute terror, and that choice saved not just himself, but 29 other victims who could now come forward, and who knows how many future victims who would never be targeted because we'd shut down the operation. The case went to trial 8 months later. The evidence was overwhelming. Surveillance footage, text messages, financial records, victim testimony, testimony from arrested members who cooperated for reduced sentences. The prosecution presented a detailed picture of a sophisticated criminal enterprise that had terrorized elderly people and stolen millions. The defense tried various strategies, claiming the victims were willing participants in gambling debts, suggesting the threats weren't credible, arguing entrapment, but none of it worked against the mountain of documented evidence. Natalie Voss received 18 years in federal prison. Adrian Colton got 16 years. Derek Marsh got 15 years. The man from the bar, whose name was Leonard Price, received 14 years. Additional members of the network arrested in subsequent raids received sentences ranging from 8 to 22 years, depending on their roles and level of cooperation. The leaders of the organization, 3 individuals operating from an office in Los Angeles, received 25-year sentences each. But beyond the criminal justice outcomes, the case changed how casinos approached security forever. Dale and I, along with Detective Foster, worked with gaming control boards across multiple states to develop new protocols and systems. Now, when someone hits a jackpot over $100,000 at major casinos, surveillance immediately initiates what we call a winner protection protocol. The system automatically scans all cameras in the area around the jackpot machine, looking for anyone who's been maintaining position with line of sight to that machine for extended periods. It flags anyone who's been in the casino for more than 2 hours without significant gambling activity. It identifies groups of people who arrived separately but maintain coordinated positioning. It tracks phone usage patterns to spot people who might be communicating with teams outside the casino. And most importantly, it trains all floor personnel, from dealers to cocktail servers to security officers, to recognize signs of distressed gambling behavior that might indicate external pressure or coercion. We also established direct communication protocols with law enforcement. Any suspected extortion case triggers immediate notification to organized crime units. We created a cross-casino database where suspicious individuals could be tracked across multiple properties. If someone shows up at several different casinos around the time of major jackpots, that pattern gets flagged and investigated. The technology side evolved too. Facial recognition systems were enhanced to identify known criminals and associates. Behavioral analysis software was developed to detect anomalous patterns that might indicate coerced gambling. Communication with victim families was established through secure channels, so we could verify safety of any children or relatives who might be leverage points. In my first year after the protocols were implemented, we identified and intervened in 13 potential extortion cases before they reached the jackpot stage. 13 elderly grandparents who might have gone through what Robert Hayes experienced, who didn't have to face that terror. 13 families who were spared that trauma. The criminals attempting those operations were arrested and prosecuted before they could complete their schemes. I got promoted to surveillance coordinator, overseeing security operations across 3 ARIA properties. My first major project in the new role was developing pattern recognition software specifically designed to identify potential extortion victims before they even hit a jackpot. The software tracked gambling behavior over time, learning normal patterns for regular players, then flagging significant deviations that might indicate external pressure. It monitored bet sizing changes, session length changes, body language through our cameras using posture and movement analysis, frequency of phone checking, stress indicators like fidgeting or face touching. When the system detected a pattern consistent with coerced gambling, it alerted surveillance supervisors for human review. We could then watch more closely, check for potential suspects in the area, and prepare intervention if needed. The system worked better than we'd hoped. In the first 6 months, it identified 22 potential cases, of which 9 turned out to be actual extortion attempts. We stopped all 9 before jackpots were hit, arrested the perpetrators, and ensured victim safety. The other 13 false positives were mostly people gambling with money they couldn't afford to lose, struggling with addiction issues. We referred them to counseling services and self-exclusion programs. Last month, almost exactly 3 years after that night in October, I got a letter delivered to the ARIA's security office. It was addressed to Vincent Carver, surveillance coordinator. The handwriting was careful and neat, done by someone who wanted every word to be legible. The envelope had a return address in Tucson, Arizona. Mr. Carver, the letter began. I don't know if you'll remember me. I'm the old man who won $247,000 and almost got his grandson hurt because of it. I wanted to write to thank you for paying attention when I looked up at that camera and asked for help. I wanted you to know that Lucas is 9 years old now. He's safe, he's happy, and he has no idea how close he came to being a victim of terrible people. I never told him the specific details of what happened that night. He's too young to carry that burden. But I did tell him that sometimes good people are watching over us, even when we don't know it, and that asking for help is always the right choice. That being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means doing the right thing even when you're terrified. Because of your attention to detail and your willingness to take action, all 4 people who directly threatened my family are in prison. The FBI told me they identified 29 other families these criminals had targeted. You helped save a lot of people, Mr. Carver. Not just me, but families I'll never meet who were suffering in silence until our case gave them the courage to come forward. I used part of my winnings to set up a college fund for Lucas. He'll be able to go to any school he wants when the time comes. The rest I donated to a nonprofit organization that helps elderly people recognize and report financial exploitation and fraud. I can't change what happened to me or undo the fear I felt that night, but maybe I can help prevent it from happening to someone else. Maybe some grandmother or grandfather will see the warning signs because of educational programs my donation helped fund. That feels like the right way to use money that came from such a dark experience. I want you to know that what you do matters, Mr. Carver. Casino surveillance probably feels like a job where you just watch people waste money and make bad choices most of the time. But you were watching carefully enough to see when someone desperately needed help. You paid attention when it really counted. You cared enough about a stranger to take action. That made all the difference in the world to me and to my family. Lucas is doing great in school. He loves science and wants to be a marine biologist when he grows up. He's kind to other kids, stands up against bullies, and has a strong sense of right and wrong. Sometimes I think about the lesson I would have taught him if I'd just paid those criminals and stayed quiet. I'd have shown him that evil wins when good people are too scared to fight back. Instead, because you were watching and because you helped me, I got to teach him that courage exists and that people care about each other even when they're strangers. Thank you for your service, Mr. Carver. Thank you for being one of the good people watching over the rest of us. The world needs more people like you. The letter was signed simply, Robert Hayes and his grandson Lucas. I keep that letter in the top drawer of my desk. On the long nights when I'm staring at 47 monitors for 10 hours straight, watching thousands of strangers gambling and drinking and making choices I'll never fully understand, when the job feels tedious and pointless, I pull out that letter and remember why this work matters. Casino surveillance isn't really about protecting the house money or catching card counters or spotting cheaters, though we do all those things. It's about watching for the moments when someone is in real danger and needs help, but can't directly ask for it. It's about recognizing that sometimes a jackpot winner isn't celebrating because they know their supposed good fortune has just painted a target on their back. It's about understanding that behind every face on every camera is a complete human life with people they love and fears they carry. Robert Hayes looked up at a camera and trusted that someone was watching, that someone would care, that someone would help. That trust, in a moment of absolute terror, saved his life and his grandson's safety. It broke open a criminal network and saved dozens of other families from similar trauma. And it all happened because someone was paying attention. That's what keeps me coming back to that surveillance room 30 feet above the casino floor, surrounded by monitors showing every angle of human behavior in a place where desperation and money collide. Because sometimes, the most important thing any of us can do is simply pay attention when someone needs us to notice they're in danger. Sometimes, watching is the job that saves lives, and that makes every long night, every tedious hour, every moment of careful attention worthwhile.